Hey everyone, this is Curb and I bring you another standard match. Today we have myself on the right once again playing Avantgarda, and on the left we do actually have Matt from Bahk to Bahk Gaming playing Diablos Bruce Viamance. Anyway, so getting into the match, I am going to be going first. A very beneficial for me. You obviously always want to be going first with this deck. Matt's going to go ahead and swing, and unfortunately we can't see it here in the video, but he does actually flip over that red OT. So now we're just kind of debating, wow, that seems like a great time to use your over trigger, huh? So since he has no standing rear guards, he is actually going to be able to draw a card and then call a card from hand. He's actually going to be calling out that Bruce and giving it the 100 million, and then just swinging at the Vanguard. So obviously I didn't want to guard either one of these attacks. I mean, that first one was boosted by the Steve. Actually, Steve is a grade 1. What's the grade 0? Oh, it's Matt, just like the intern. Anyways, I'm obviously going to be taking that, and then I'm not going to be guarding 100 million attack. So, going to go straight to 2 on my first grade 1 turn, I suppose, as I discard an extra copy of Hathaway from my hand to ride into the grade 2 and be searching out that Night. It's not Night Shroud, just Kill Shroud. Night Shroud would not be violent enough for a Avantgarda order. Anyways, just adding it to the hand. Unfortunately, we didn't really see any habitable zones, this is finally the turn where you actually want to start using your cycle cards, just so you don't lose as much advantage. But then again, this is Avantgarda, and you don't really have to worry about losing advantage. As I call down my second Hathaway, using the skill to just draw a card to replace itself, and then call out my spicy little tech, the Planetarhai Dragon, which is, he's doing exactly what he needs to do in the situations where I don't actually find the habitable zone. He can use my little bit of soul in order to give himself in the 5k, so this little grade 2 10k guy is already hitting for a nice 15, which is a 10k guard. But of course we're not going to be guarding that, hitting into a defensive, but thanks to Hathaway being a 10k booster, I am still going to be able to hit over that defensive. Swing for a nice 20, leaving my Matt to go ahead and decide whether he wants to take that. I mean, we could just throw it on a 15k shield, and that is an OT to pass. But you know, still a 15k at this point is kind of debatable whether you want to throw that down or if you want to keep taking damage. Bruce is definitely a deck that does use a lot of CB, but looks like we are going to commit that 15k guard. Flipping over the trigger, definitely the correct call, because as I do flip over a crit, that's going to keep us at 1 instead of having us at 3. So riding into the Richard, shoving the Mat into the Soul, and then of course just drawing the card. So very interesting setup here. We've got the grade 2 Vanguard and the grade 3 rear guard. Just gonna be swinging at the Vanguard. I'm already at 2, so I think I'm not gonna risk things, and I'm just gonna go OT to pass, which is gonna be a no pass since, you know, we already did see OT during that first turn. As Matt flips over a draw trigger there, giving the power to that rear guard boost, probably just deciding whether he wants to try and push me to 3 this turn, or he wants to take out that rear guard. Now that rear guard is definitely a viable target, because like I said, it's a 15k attacker, meaning going into this next turn it will be able to actually hit for very good numbers if I do use the skill. So taking it out is probably not the worst option, but either way I have to decide whether I'm going to give that 15k guard to this Bruce swing, as he is swinging for 23. Just gonna be opting to take it and go to 3. Heading to defensive doesn't really matter. But things are not looking the greatest here. I am already at 3, and we're barely on my first turn in 3. So personally, I don't really think it's as bad as you might initially think, because Avantgarda is a deck that can definitely take a lot of hits in the early game, and it's really good at stabilizing once it gets to grade 3, because you have the Avantgarda draw, you have Hathaways, you have the Lady, who allows you to just add more cards to hand, deck thin, and then with triple drive checks, even though if you are discarding once, you're technically only just getting the 2 drive checks, you are able to kind of maintain advantage and filter and draw enough to where you can kind of stabilize, even if you do get pushed to 5 damage pretty early on. Anyways, just using the Avantgarda skill here, shoving in the Dusting that we search off of the ride line, And then, of course, theoretically, we have one extra soul right now, but I could give it to the Planetar, but I think the much more viable option is going to give it to this lady that I have in my hand, going to be calling her down, soul blasting out the order in order to search out the Death Winds, which is, you know, usually the one you're going to be searching because you, at least in my build, if you see in the deck profile, I only play one of the grade 1 and grade 2, and only 2 copies of the Death Winds. So adding the Death Winds to my hand is really the only option I have here, because I actually don't have a non-dusting in circulation, because I only have my grade 1. I am talking a lot for something that does not really need to be explained. Anyways, looks like we are probably just going to be going at it with this board. It's perfectly fine. One of the issues Avantgarda does tend to have is that it doesn't really have boosters, and the rear guards aren't always the strongest. The lady really does kind of fix that problem, but you know, it is what it is. Anyways, gonna be swinging the Vanguard for a nice 38, gonna be calling out a PG, which is typically what Avantgarda is gonna be doing, but we do see me being a very good player, flipping over that over trigger, giving the 100 million to the Planetar because the lady gets an extra 5k, so she's gonna get doubled to 30 off of that over trigger, and then I'm gonna flip over a heal trigger, pumping her up to another 10k up to 40. A little unfortunate that it wasn't the other direction, but you know, it's over trigger. Can I really complain? It is whatever. Swinging the lady for 40, not going to be able to block that. Swing for 200 million. Push Matt straight to 5. Very good plays, very fair, very cool. I love 1-5ing my opponents off of flipping one trigger. Anyways, looks like it's going to be our chance to counterattack here as we do go into our final burst, calling the Stephanie and the new card Geo from set 12. So let's see what he can do. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a full column, so he's not really going to be able to do too much. And we are not under Persona Ride, and he doesn't give himself any power. So it's just going to be a 10k swing for my lady. Obviously going to give up my other grade 2 because I value her much more. As we swing 13 at, I believe, the Vanguard this time. Getting ready to use that Geno skill. Kind of deciding if I want to take this one or if I want to take the Vanguard swing. I decided I'll just take this one because it's a lot safer, as the Viamance Bruce is going to be swinging, using the skill of the Geno to Soul Blast 2. Choose, for every 2 cards in your damage, you choose 1 card in the same column as him, and you do stand it, and then if you stood 2 with his skill, he gets... I think both those units get 5k, but it is sending the Bruce, flipping into a heal trigger, adding the power to the Bruce, and then of course I think we hit another trigger here. I could go back and check, but I really don't want to, so we're just gonna pretend that the Geo gets another 10k from the trigger, even though we didn't see it, as I PG'd this Vanguard swing. Swinging the 20k at the lady. I don't really want to commit a 15k at this point. I don't think I have an optimal 15k guard, so I'm just gonna let her die. As I take the 28, which is a awkward numbers in cards, so I'm not going to commit just like 2 cards to that, because I probably don't have a front trigger, otherwise I would have done that. Calling down the habitable zone and finally being able to use what he is actually here for. He's supposed to call out the replenishment dock, allowing you to add it to your hand, and then you finally have boosters because all of your grade 2s become boosters. We do actually see the Geno using its skill. I think at the end of the turn you can put it to soul and then add a card from your soul to your hand, which is you just did this Geno. Anyways, playing the replenishment dock, allowing me to draw a card. I have no idea what I was doing there, as I almost soul blast out my Sword Piercer for no reason. But what I meant to do is use Avantgarda skill to put the Death Winds, giving the skill to my Vanguard, calling out the lady, soul blasting out the Death Winds, and then adding back the dusting to my hand, because that's my only valid target once again. Thankfully, I'm pretty lucky and things don't actually go to damage that often. Unfortunately, I don't really have anything else that I want to call in my hand at the moment, so I'm just going to be pushing that habitable zone up and then swing with this board, but it's still going to be pretty strong, as my Avantgarda is going to be swinging for a nice 33, giving that +5 to the entire front row. Now, Matt is going to be guarding for, I believe, 43 here, which should be a 1 to pass, but I think we just did maths wrong, as I give all my effects to the Vanguard. Technically, you should be totally dead here, but give it time, he'll get there. Anyways, giving the power to my Vanguard because he does only have 6 cards in hand. If he has the PG, I want to just like bait it out even more. So I'm going to be swinging for 53, drive checking into another Persona Ride as I give my front row another 5k, giving a total of 20k to the front row, 30k at the Vanguard, going to be blocked by that 15, thanks to the Stephanie being that defensive card. And then, of course, the lady's going to swing at 40, which is going to be too much as we take it and go to 5 once again. Retiring the Stephanie, opting to go on the offense with calling out the Mabel. And going to be starting off with that Gino, swinging at the Vanguard for a nice 20. Finally able to hit all by himself. What a grown-up boy he is. Just going to be guarding that with a 15. Swinging the 23. When this restands is going to be a 28, so I'm going to be guarding it right now. While I still can guard it with just a 15. Using the skills once again, Gino and Viamance Bruce are going to restand with their skills. I'm just going to PG the Vanguard. Unfortunately, I don't have Elementaria because, in case you don't know, Mabel actually gives your Vanguard triple drive, making your Elementarias free, which is just like a really funny interaction. Anyways, we're going to decide kind of what we want to do here. Looks like he's going to be targeting, Matt's going to be targeting my lady, going to be committing that 20k guard to protect her as the Gino swings once again at her, and I really like her. She's my best attacker, so I am going to commit that 15k guard to keep her alive. So I'm going to be starting off with that drive checked Persona Ride that I got last turn, and things are not looking good for Matt here. You know, we are at 5 damage. We're looking at the solid 5 attacks. Thankfully for him, I'm not under Death Winds, and I'm just under Dusting this turn, so it's not as bad as it could be, as I just called down Freiheit, just basically to be a 10k booster at this point. Not even going to be using this skill because I don't really think I need it. Although I really could have and just deck thin. I think I have one more Persona Ride left, but I don't think it's really going to matter, as we're going to swing the Vanguard for 38 without the boost. That's just going to be not guarding that, drive checking, and of course finishing off the game there. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Don't forget to do all those 2 things, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.